Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee and Astrology, Astrology and Coffee, whichever, however you prefer it. I've had my caffeine for the morning, so
Is it a monster?
no, actually, but it is a Red Bull. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Let us know what you're drinking, where you're tuning in from. We're here to talk about Uranus again, so I hope you're all excited for part 2. Today we're going to be going through the houses as well. You're good. As well as our what are they called? Aspects, that's it. Which is going to be a lot more pertinent with Uranus because it is, kind of a generational planet, many generations. And so it will probably apply more than having it in different signs. Yay! I'm super excited. And anyway, let me tell you a little bit about the Academy of Logic and Light. So, with the Academy of Logic and Light, we are just trying to create a safe space for people to share their knowledge as well as their gifts with each other. Break down some of those barriers in magic and these fun arts that's a little off the beaten path. And yeah, that's what we're here to do. We have not new moon events, but we have community circles every month on the third Sunday, as well as our astrology classes weekly. We have some more fun classes coming up. The new year is going to be jam-packed. We just had a big meeting yesterday. I'm so excited with the places we're going and the things we're doing. If you're interested in getting involved with Academy of Logic and Light, you can follow us on social media. You can just like and share this video, as well as joining our Facebook group. Is kind of where we take polls and kind of get more into it with people. We've also got our Astrology After Dark with Julie L, myself, and then Kat, the other member of the Academy. And we all talk about just unhinged astrology things. It's great. We have a couple glasses of wine or drinks and yeah, talk astrology. Our most recent one was on the Kardashians, and I loved it. I think it went so well. And Ella's not only an expert at astrology, but also the Kardashians. So.
For real.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and roll an intro video and turn the time over to our teachers today. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello. Sorry, I'm managing baby until, the babysitter's here. And so if I'm kind of distracted, she'll be here shortly. So
it's all good.
And also, I would like to just totally off topic, but give a shout out to parents out there, whether you have littles, which are challenging in their own ways, but if you have teenagers, I am sorry. And I hope it goes smoothly for you. Because, they all come with different things, and you never know what to expect. You think you get 2 out the door, and you're like, oh, okay, we're good. And then you get one that's, approaching that, and then you're like, oh, what the hell? What is this? So, good for you, especially multiple teenagers. I hope that you're okay. Check in, mental health, make sure that you're doing okay, because I know that it can be a challenge. Not related. Unless you have a 13-year-old daughter, then let's talk. Maybe we can counsel each other.
You need a support group.
I do. An asshole teenager support group from mothers and fathers, because they're assholes and they're sneaky.
I was a sneaky teenager. My dad told me that if I was to have children, that they would end up I would be giving birth to myself, and I was like,
yeah. Nah. Yeah, every parent said, they're like, oh, it's gonna be your payback, and you know what? They weren't lying.
Yeah, I'm gonna opt out.
I'm like, I don't know why I decided to have so many, because I like to, really put myself to the ringer. It's that Saturn Scorpio Saturn, I really like to put some challenges in my life. You can relate. Yours are just different.
Yeah, I can relate.
All right, Uranus, part 2, and the houses. The houses are so fun because this is like where the shift and the change and the unexpected and the rebellion and all the things come in. So this is, when you look at this, the planet or the sign that the planet's in, and then you look at the house, you can really come together and be like, oh yeah, this is why this is always fucked up for me, or really great. I mean, aspects are important. It could be a really positive shift and change, but normally it's abruptly. So I don't feel like anything, unless you just come into $1 million really quick, I don't feel like anything is really like abruptly great, unless it's financial gain.
Yeah, exactly. You don't just like wake up in abundant health, but I'm here for it if it exists.
Yeah.
Okay, let's dive in. Okay, so we already know this. We already know what we're doing. We've got our 12 houses, positive and challenging points, the aspects. And as always, the planet is the what, the sign is the how, the house is the where, and the aspects are the dynamics. First house, let's go.
All right. So anytime your Uranus is in the first house, again, depending on what sign it's in, and also depending on what aspects, this one, changes show up abruptly in physical appearance. Like you could be one of those people that kind of, it's okay, extreme, like is it called yo-yo dieting? Is that what it's called?
There is a yo-yo dieting.
Yeah, I was gonna say these are like extreme changes with like physical appearance, and you go from this to this, or this person really has to be aware, be cautious, and learn that maybe like certain changes throughout the physical body isn't a good thing. This is kind of that area for maybe someone with anorexia or obesity. It's extremes, right? So it's like one or the other. But this person, when you have Uranus in the first house, things really just show up in a physical way for you, like changing, like shifting. It can be dramatic or it can be subtle depending on other placements in your chart. But it can cause your way of thinking and kind of progress who you are, and like being adaptable to change, being okay with the changes of your body. But anytime,
I think we all struggle with that part.
yeah, we all have Uranus in the first house. But it just kind of really helps when you overcome certain things and you create like an understanding of like, maybe this isn't so healthy. Like that's when you've progressed through it and that you've learned like maybe a lesson. Not that Uranus is a lesson, like not like Saturn, and it definitely doesn't pull you through the depths of hell like Pluto. But it is, trying to expand your mind and make you think differently. So it might bring a lot of different perspectives about body image or, physical health, and just how you incorporate that in your daily life. So, and self too. I guess it doesn't have to be physical. First house is Aries, self energy. So it could just be like you really trying to understand the changes that are just helping. It could be just who you are and just yourself, your mental and things like that. Not as heavy as like a Gemini or Virgo house, like a third or the sixth house, but definitely something there. These people generally are original. This is where it comes from. They can be original, they can be creative, intuitive, because these barriers that push them through, or these erratic changes, happen so quickly that it brings out those good points in them. So unless they don't evolve, then they're inconsiderate, stubborn. I don't think eccentric's bad.
No, I love my weirdos.
I know. So yeah.
Okay.
So in the second house, this one is heavy for a lot of people because it's possessions. So I think of like Uranus, rebellion, pushing, sudden changes, either being good or bad. I feel like you either come into some really good possessions. Maybe you've got like a Taurus sun, and it's in your Uranus is in the second house, and they kind of conjunct. And then you also have maybe like your Uranus in Capricorn, that its capability of like attracting like change in career, but in a good way, collecting a lot of possessions, right? That would be a really good kind of dynamic. And I'm trying to throw some aspects out there for you guys. So if that was really foreign to you, it's fine, we'll get there. But the ones that are kind of catching on, like you may have got that a little bit. But if it's not so, you know, such a great aspect, then it could be possessions go away. And that's all of a sudden, like, think of Schitt's Creek. You know, they're living
Oh
their
yeah.
happy life and then it's all taken away from them, right? Like it's gone. But then they like kind of find this beauty and that's where the growth is, right? Like that's where the sudden change, it helps evolve them. They would have never became the people that they became without that experience. And I think that if you can like see that and finally be like, oh, okay, this was really shitty, but like look what I became in the end. Like that's really truly all the obstacles in our lives. That's how we should view them. I know Julie and I view them like that because we have Saturn and Scorpio. Like, you know, you meet those people that are like, oh my God, I've been through so much and it's made my life so hard. And you can just tell that they're still upset about it. We're not those people. We're like, let me tell you about the shit I've been through. It was real.
Just a regular Tuesday.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, you know, we have charts and we have things in our charts that really make us embrace those things. And I am grateful for that. I'm also grateful for Sagittarius Uranus because, sorry, I don't know why I'm like stuffy all of a sudden. It does give us a positive outlook at the end of it. Like we're really capable to see the positive, and that's where in the houses, it's like that's the direction that it takes us in. So possessions come, they go, whether they come into your life abruptly or they're taken abruptly, there's a lesson in that. So try to stay humble if it's a good thing. You know, I think that's a truly a good lesson for Uranus in any of the houses is if you things come really quick in abundance, hopefully you stay humble about that. I know that I've had lessons in that and I've had to humble myself and I get on my high horse when I'm on the high. And so it always knocks me back down though. So that's good.
It does.
I'm chilling. All right, Uranus in the third house. So the house of Gemini, ruled by Mercury. This is like communications. This is speaking and mental, like think of like mental capacity for a lot of things and fast and quick and the newest inventions. And I mean, these are the trendy IT guys that get it, right? So when your Uranus is in this placement, it can be cause you to maybe shift in the way you think. It can maybe shift in how you perceive things. Like if you think of, I know in our younger years, I feel like we're more like, oh, new, quick and fast and whatever. And I think as we get older, we go through things and we might slow down a little bit. This is kind of maybe you have this placement where you're just kind of like, you know, I don't need the newest of the new. I used to care about that, but I don't so much care about that anymore. Like this is kind of that shift. And that's when, you know, you progress because always constantly needing new. And if it's changing and shifting, it could, depending on your chart, align and work well, but it could burn you out really fast too. It could cause, you know, restlessness and just anxiety, and that's not good for anyone. So when you
especially with how fast things change.
Oh yeah, I have like the oldest iPhone. My iPhone's not even compatible anymore. Like I'll get text messages from my husband. They'll be there, but they don't alert me, and there's no way of fixing it. Snapchat can't be alerted because of like how old it is, and I'm okay with that. I'm like, you know, I'll check the app when I check the app, but it's fine.
I'm here for that.
Yeah, so I think I've progressed differently. I mean, mine is in the 12th house, and we'll go into that. But so when you have the third house, Uranus in the third house, things shift abruptly in a way of like fast pace to slow pace to fast pace, mentally stimulated to not. I mean, it's just kind of the area of how you shift and where the rebellion is going to come out is like how you handle that, whether you fight against it or fight for it. You know, it can either point you to being very creative and versatile or restless and anxious. So if you find yourself with your Uranus in the third house and you do feel anxious and restless, look at the things that have been coming your way and how you're handling them. Are you evolving through them or are you just, you know, not really dealing with it and then it keeps coming back up? Because ultimately all the planets, all the signs, until you progress through whatever it is that it's trying to teach you in that moment,
yeah,
it's going to keep coming back up.
100%. Just like Mercury retrograde.
It always comes back.
Deal with your shit.
I dealing with my shit.
I think it's a common theme.
No, I push through pretty well, actually. Okay,
This one's mine.
this one's yours. So this one is interesting because it can be really good, and change in family can be really good. It can be really exciting, or really unexpected change can be a little hard. Like maybe your brother comes out of the closet, and it's like, whoa,
Wow, that would change everything.
yeah. But I'm saying that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's a moment for someone to grow, right? Especially parents who can't handle it. Parents that are like, it might come later in life, this shift and this change, but ultimately they're either going to say I love you no matter what, even if they're of like religious cultures or whatever, they don't agree with it. They're either going to say, well, I love you, or they're not, and they're going to kind of, it's going to be one of those things where they don't, and then they miss out on the rest of their kids' life. So that's a lesson in itself, right? You have to learn to evolve, and some of them it takes a while, some of them it doesn't, sometimes never, and that's next life shit that they have to deal with. So good luck, because you're probably going to have gay or lesbian kids for the rest of your life until you learn how to get over that, because it's, who gives a shit? Like, let your people be who they want to be. But and that's just an example. So anytime you have about your fourth house, it's shifting and changing abruptly with family, rebellion through family. Again, if you progress through this and you really evolve, then your good points would be successful at entertaining groups in your home. So you can just go with it. It's light and it's easy. You're fun. You're festive. You're like the fun aunt at the party. If not, you can.
I am the fun aunt at the party.
I bet you bring like great gifts too, like witchy gifts. Like here's a.
I try to be respectful because like they're so against it. But yeah, I do talk to them about crystals. I got them like little rainbow prisms and I can't think bubble guns and glow sticks, so like mini raves.
You're like, save this for later, kids. You're gonna need it.
I promise there's more out there for you.
She'll come to me in a few years. I don't know how old they are, but
yeah.
I do the same. I have family that's very religious, and I want to buy them like certain things that I'm like, oh, this would be cool because you're this and this and whatever. But then I end up getting them a candle or a cup because I'm like, they do differently, But they do the same for me. They bought me. It's my sister-in-law and her husband. They bought for my birthday like a chakra little thing. Like they do the same, and then they bought me like an air candle with all the elements of it. So I feel like it's both ways. It's really cute.
Yeah, that is cute.
So
that's sweet.
But yeah, fourth house. This is going to be a lot of shifting, a lot of growing, change. It's going to bring that out, and you may have like a really hard childhood, or you may have a really good childhood, and then adult life. There's some shift at some point. Your family can be very different. They can be kind of the outsiders. I mean, it really could go so many ways.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good one because I think family, like at our core, is like our foundation. And I think if it's shifting and kind of moving, I think we're always flexible to shift and move. And I think that's something really valuable that you need in your adult life that a lot of kids don't get. Like kids that live in the same home their entire life. I'm like,
I can't even comprehend it.
Oh, like what do you do when you move as an adult? I just, one of my friends, I realized this weekend, she grew up in the same house. She moved once. Every time she moves, and I'm not saying this is the case for everyone, she gets super anxious, like puking and whatever. And I'm like,
oh wow.
I'm not saying you should move your kids around a lot when they're kids, but I think that there's something to that. I don't know.
Yeah. I literally didn't live anywhere for longer than 5 years ever.
And you're a gypsy.
Yeah.
You're just like everywhere. And I think that's great.
It was hard to settle down.
Yeah. My kids moved a lot. I moved a lot. I moved from Oklahoma to Utah back and forth. So my kids have done the shift, and I think that they're better for it, Not everyone agrees with that. Their father was like, that's inconsistent. But I'm like, it's fine. They need it.
Yeah. Then we got our fifth house.
All right. Uranus in the fifth house. This is Leo energy, sun energy, center of attention, center of attention, not the attention. It's still kind of early. I've had a morning, guys. So this in this time, this is kind of like you can learn and things change through your children, and it can make you uh, push to be more creative. I know when I became a mom, I became my children changed me so much, and not in an abrupt. This is kind of like more towards them changing you in a way to make you more creative, more fun, more in the limelight. And that's one of the things. So this also can be a placement for like creating, like being creative and it changing and shifting throughout your life. Like maybe you're an artist and maybe you have times where you're like on top of the world and everyone is coming to you and your art is selling like crazy, and then all of a sudden it stops, and then you have to learn how to change and how to come up with different ideas, because what worked in one century one decade will not work in the next, or may not work in the next, and then it might come back later. So it's kind of this one's really cool because I feel like when you have Uranus in the fifth house, it creates this change with creativity and just being very skilled in what you do, but also being adaptable to change. Because face it, fifth house Leo energy is fixed. It does not want to change. It likes to stay where it's at. And this is going to push you to change. This is not going to let you be comfortable. It's going to make you change and get out of that comfort zone. And in return, you become innovated, and you create expression. And then if you don't evolve through that, you may be estranged from children. You don't have children. There could be a number of things. It could cause you to be resentful of your art. It could cause you to hate your music. It could cause whatever creative streak that is. It can cause you to hold a grudge against it. Like, this worked for me in my younger years and it doesn't work for me now. Like writers that, go into like this whole writing, what's it called? Like they can't write.
Like a writer's block.
Yeah, they go through that, and it's like you can either like keep pushing or figure it out. And it's like you see these movies where like all of a sudden a light bulb goes off, and you're like, "That's it!" Like it's things like that that you have to learn. Like, oh, this really sucked during this time, but it pushed me and it made me think of this, and I never would have created this had I not gone through this. And again, it's not Saturn energy, it's not that heavy, and it's not Pluto energy, but it does shift you and change you in a change, quickly, rebellious, different than what you're used to norm kind of way. It's different. It's out there. So I could appreciate that if I had it in the fifth house, I think. All right, in the sixth house. So Uranus in the sixth house, Virgo energy, Mercury energy. This can make you, Virgo wants to be very structured. They want organization, they want cleanliness, they want to service people to the best of their abilities. This might cause the opposite to happen. Like you may have something happen where you're messy, or you're like, I don't care if this is clean, or no, I don't wash my hands, kind of energy that you're just like more rebellious in what feels like should be the norm for you. And the norm for Virgo is all of those things. So it can also create ways of thinking that are very different than sixth house energy. If you go through a lot of things, like typical Virgo is like conveyor belt type of thinking, like it needs to be structured, and this goes with this is here, and this is boxed. And but this can, if you evolve through that and you really work on whatever comes your way, you can be very inventive. You can be very I don't know, the way that you think can expand in so many different ways. You have the capability, Mercury, Virgo, they're mentally stimulated, but it's more structured than like a Gemini. So this can cause you, I don't want to say think like a Gemini, but be more open to the ideas than just like what has to happen, what's been happening for 100 years. So, but if you don't progress and you don't evolve with it, it does create inconsistency. And it also, I think messiness is one of the things. Like you can push so hard and be rebel against what feels like the norm to you, like tidiness and an organization, to where it's just like doesn't make sense. It's messy, it's cluttered, and that doesn't do anything well for your anxiety and things in you. So watch out for those things.
That's so interesting too. Yeah, because you just think of Virgo like, so structured. So it's so interesting.
This is trying to push you through that. I mean, it ultimately, Uranus in any sign or house is trying to shift the way the sign works, right? It's trying to push you to different levels of it or links of it or just trying to make you think different or feel different, depending on what it's in, react different. And so
Makes sense.
this one's got to be hard. I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want this one. The seventh house is Libra, Venus, relationships, beauty. So this one, you really are going to change through relationships. They're going to change you. They're going to happen abruptly, end abruptly, bring you heartache, bring you love, good and bad. It's going to be all the things. But in the end, I think that one of the things here to learn is that, loving yourself. This is a self-love era, because if you constantly get so down about every relationship that ends, you're left, if you don't love yourself, you're left with like the emptiness of that person. But if you love yourself, you're like, cool, like you left and that sucks, but I still have me, so thank God, and I think that's ultimately like kind of the lesson here. um I just think that, it can be either that direction, or it could be that you have such good relationships that you keep continuously getting more. I mean, it depends on all the aspects of your chart, but um, anytime you have Uranus in the seventh house, there's change and shifting in relationships, whether it be really extreme, really good, or really bad, and you just have to learn through it. It probably depends on what your Saturn's in, honestly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm like going through everyone's charts right now, as usual.
You suck in relationships. They keep going bad to teach you. And with that, like some people really feel like they're so mad about their relationships with people, and they're like, this person did this, and it's so amazing to me how people don't understand, like, it's you. You can be mad at that person, but at the end of the day, it's internally you. Like, what they did upset you because of you. Like, and I don't know. I try to get it through to my kids, my friends. I don't know how to beat that into somebody's head. Like when I'm triggered by something, I'm like, oh God, why? What is it?
Yeah.
It's triggering me. Like, why am I triggered by this? If I'm triggered by something, it is a me problem, not a them problem. They probably don't even know. So,
unless you tell them.
yeah. And you can tell them, but even then it's a you problem.
Yeah.
Not a you and them problem at that point, but it's for sure internally, and you need to figure that shit out.
Yes.
Eighth house.
This one's interesting.
Yes. So this one, I was like sitting and I was thinking, like, Uranus in the eighth house. And I really use my intuition on these things a lot of the times. Like, other than the fact, I mean, I've studied and I know all the things. It's just sometimes, like the intuition and just the knowing and putting it together yourself, I find is like the most beneficial for me. These people, I feel like, are like natural. They get it when things shift or change, because eighth house energy, Scorpio energy, Pluto energy, it's always kind of heavy. I kind of think they like that, but it's also like shifting. And although Scorpio is fixed and they don't like change, they're probably the most adaptable of the fixed signs. Like transformation, understanding that things have to change, really really diving deep in their emotions and processing. I think they're the best processors. Not only are they the best researchers, but they are the best processors. So a lot of change can come through, like, how maybe you process things, how you internally dive deep in things, like maybe how you view sexuality, maybe how you view religion, different things that can cause you to transform and be more of a place of understanding and adaptable to the change. I think that anytime I see this placement too, it does, it can be very heavy, and it can cause, like, if they're not evolving, if they're not growing, and they're not really truly getting their lessons in, I think depression is probably the highest thing that would come from this, because they constantly feel like things are hitting them, and they can't see the positive of it. They can't see the outcome, to where they get so deep and so dark and heavy into their genetic makeup of like Scorpio energy that it can cause them to set into depression throughout life. And maybe that shifts and change. Maybe like they were depressed as a kid and then they're fine as an adult, or vice versa. It can shift, however, just when they decide to evolve, or unevolve. Sometimes that can happen too. You could do really well and then things keep hitting you, and then all of a sudden you're negative Nancy and you're going down the rabbit hole of all things horrible, and you're set into a depression state.
Definitely have seen that before.
It's so sad.
It is. Ooh.
Ninth house. I love the ninth house. I would live in the ninth house if I could. That would be where I would stay. Exploring, education, learning. My husband tells me all the time, he was like, you ask too many questions. I'm Sagittarius dominant, and I have questions about everything. Like, he just sees someone, it's like, oh, I saw such and such today. And I'm like, oh, what did they say? Well, what about this? And how did this go? And what do they mean by this? And he's like, I don't know. I don't care. Why are you 1,200 questions about a simple conversation? Like, I know that he doesn't even want to tell me things anymore because I have 1,000 questions. And so
That's hilarious.
when you have Uranus in the ninth house, you're curious. By nature, things are going to come to you that are going to cause you to be curious or not. So anytime I see Uranus in the ninth house, it's like really important that I help this person understand that, like, the things that come your way, the unexpected, whether it's be just advice or education, or like maybe you end up getting into a course that you didn't even expect coming your way that taught you all these things, or memory loss or something, because either way, this just gives you this like spark of life that you're open to new things. You get excited about new things. You are curious about learning. That's all Sagittarius, Jupiter energy. Also, luck resides here. So it's kind of like when you have Uranus in the ninth house, the changes that come your way, I feel like are pretty lucky most of the time, depending on other aspects of your chart. But it gives you a really independent way about yourself, that you comfort in yourself. The things that happen that come your way build kind of this strong character and knowledgeable character, and just and if you don't take those things and use them for good, you could use them for bad. You could be rebellious, you can be just wild in the sense, like I think of the motorcycle gang, but like that do like horrible things. Like that's that kind of energy. Like, oh, like they need, they have these things happen to them, and that's kind of what they resort to, like gangs or whatever. It's still like dangerous and wild, but it's kind of like that's kind of the area where if you don't take it in a positive way and use it at your advantage, you become like a leader of a gang or something, and use it for darkness.
I only like to date the leaders of the gangs when I was a kid. I was a mess.
Because like he can run something that's shady and be successful at it. I mean, that's amazing. Because you never know who's going to kill you. You never know.
I just like a little adventure.
Yeah, I always think like, man, what if when I was younger, like, what if I was in a gang and they thought I was a rat? Like, I used to be paranoid about that. Like, what if I joined a gang and they thought I was a rat? Like, how would I handle that? Like, I mean, I'm not. Like, like they're going to believe me,
Yeah.
Things like that keep me up at night.
What if I was a rat in the gang?
But I wasn't the rat. They just suspected. Sometimes I put off this like sus vibe for people. Normally, like, I don't know, but they're like, and I think that that's something that has happened to me as a little kid. Like, people are like, I don't trust that shit. She's no good. And I think that that's like carried on to where when I was like teenagers, like, man, if I was in a gang, like, I think like, what if they thought I was a rat? Like, what would I do? Like, the things that play in my head are insane. But
I love it.
yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Good times. 10th house. So we all know Capricorn, Saturn, the daddy of astrology, and lessons and structure and career and work. So if you think about Uranus being sudden change, very, like just abrupt. I think of like career. I think of career being like change, shifted a lot, and just being like good and bad. Like, you get fired from a job and, you have to go get a different one. And then you're like, what the heck? Like, why did this happen to me? But then you find one that's so much better, or you get fired from your dream job and you never find one that's better, and you just stay mad about it. I don't know. Like, it can go either way, but it is a shift in career or public role. Like, maybe you're praised and then you're not, and then maybe you're not praised, and then maybe you shift your reality, and everyone is like, oh, we were wrong about this person. So it really this one could be kind of vast because public role and career are such big parts of our lives that
Yeah.
I think it's always shifting, always changing, and I truly believe it's always for the better, even if it doesn't seem like it in the moment. I think that whatever lesson comes behind that's only going to make you stronger and more successful. But you have to see it that way, because if you don't,
Yeah.
dealing with persons of authority, that I could see that being an issue too. But I was going to say, if you don't embrace the changes, it's only going to spiral and continue to happen. So you might as well embrace that, like, things shift and change. And Capricorn energy, 10th house energy, is cardinal. It doesn't mind shifting and changing. It likes to start new things, but it's not a fixed sign. So it's not too challenging for it to change.
Yeah, that feels almost counterintuitive, because that feels like to me Capricorns are like steadfast, but they do love to start new things. So I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. They don't love things to change in the middle, but
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
a little more flexible with it than, say, a fixed sign. So
That makes sense.
yeah. All right. Uranus in the 11th house, Aquarius. Uranus energy. This is like a good spot. Natural born astrologer. Yes, their insight and things that come to them are so out there and eccentric and weird. It's like they're open to everything. And astrology being one of the taboo things, and maybe not so much anymore. It's kind of more mainstream. It used to be very taboo. This just kind of sets the person up for like a real understanding of like things out there that seem odd, aliens, oh, the aliens don't exist, but there are things that have happened to this individual when they have this placement that they probably do believe in aliens. There's also like a huge humanitarian energy here, a better of the community and creating that, and things that have probably showed them that maybe they were homeless when they were younger, and that's like sense of community and helping the community is something that's really important to them because of their experiences. Or maybe they weren't homeless. Maybe it could be different things, but I do feel like things come their way when they need to learn and evolve, and I feel like this is one that's really, really good at evolving through things. So I think that friends mean a lot. They're part of the change and the constant shift. Like, friends are probably someone that's always there. Maybe they're not, maybe they are, depending on other aspects, but generally it's your friends are there, and it kind of helps ease the blow, I guess, per se. But like, it's just kind of having a strong suit of friends can definitely
Mhm.
help in a sense. But let me
Makes
just have
sense.
some good points, some of the bad points. So this one, the 12th house of Uranus, secrets and sorrow and self-undoing. This is where mine is in, but mine is in Sagittarius, so fret not, because these things are very light. I will say, there have been things that have happened in my life that have caused me to be very secretive. So, with that being said, as I've evolved and growing, I am starting to share those secrets. It's been very new for me. No one, like my own family, has no clue. And I've talked about this before, but no clue on things that have happened, what I've been through, what I've done, and I've expressed it more lately. Like, I'll be like, oh yeah, this happened to me, and they'll be like, that happened. I'm like, oh, remember that time? And they're like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So depending on what it is, I have been very secretive my entire life. I wouldn't tell people. I lied about my name. I did not want anyone to know anything, and it's because of what I went through in my life. I wasn't so much evolving in this aspect. I was more or less hiding. And so I think that once I started to evolve, I feel more free. I feel more like, I'll just be like, tell people something. I don't really give a shit what they think or how they feel about me. Like, I don't care anymore. I think I care too much. And that's kind of, just to throw another aspect out there, having a Libra sun, with a Sagittarius 12th house Uranus, there is a part of me that's kind of a people pleaser, and or used to be. I'm working on evolving through that, but having this like caring what people think. My son is also in the 10th house, caring what people think, and me be keeping secrets. It all kind of aligns and kind of makes up my genetic makeup. So um I have become more compassionate. I'll give you like a quick little story. When I was younger, this is very Uranus. This is kind of things that shape your opinions about things and how it shifts. When I was younger, I was adopted, and my adopted dad, this homeless guy, was like, "Hey, I can have some money," and my adopted dad was like, "Sure, you want to wash my window?" And the guy was like, "No," and my stepdad or adopted dad was like, "Well, then I guess you don't really want money." I was sitting in the car pissed, like, "Here, you don't know what he's been through." Like, I'm advocating. I am like so mad. I'm fuming. I think I'm fuming for weeks. Fast forward, or get to nowadays, 20 years later. I am a commercial real estate manager. I have a homeless man who goes to the garage stairwell, sits at the very top of it, and shits down like 12 flights of, yeah, okay. He does that every morning. That's his morning thing. Okay. I also
Wow.
go up to a homeless man and was like, "Excuse me, sir, like, you can't sleep next to the elevator." It was like, again, same garage. This was a problem downtown Salt Lake. And he just wakes up and he was like, "Fuck you, cunt." And I was just like, okay, okay, I'm just gonna call
Wow.
this. So yeah, I went through a very traumatic phase with homeless people to where I'm like, I'm definitely not advocating for them anymore. I'm definitely on the different side of things. I'm like, you know what? You should have got your life together, whatever. And so that's a shift, right? That's like, to me, I had compassion. This is very 12th house. It's compassion and loving and caring. I had that. And then events happen, I shifted. Now, real time, I'm starting to progress back because it was a self undoing. I kind of retracted because that's really not the energy I should have had about it. But I did. I retracted. And so now, real time, I'm trying to find that I'm listening to like their stories and trying to understand. I'm back to compassion. So it's always a shift and it changes, and it generally is abruptly. This one was a little longer time happening, although the homeless, you know, being assholes for 6 years of that job, that was seemed a very short time. But I created a hate for them very quickly, and that's not okay. That should never be a makeup. So that's just an example of how you can go back and forth, and how, especially in 12th house, because we tend to, anytime you see things in the self house, in the 12th house, you need to understand that you may work really hard to get ahead or achieve or whatever, and then you may regress severely. And that is because the 12th house is so dark and so deep. And so it's mutable too. It's easily persuaded to be, this or that. I'm not going to say good or bad because it's all part of the lesson. But yeah, that's just kind of, what you have to evolve through, what you have to learn. I'm more compassionate and I'm more understanding going through what I went through, and it did create a hardness, but I came back, and I think that's what's important. Because without it, I mean, why hold anger? I was angry at people that didn't even give a shit, didn't even know I existed. Like, what good is that doing me? It's not doing any good. So
Yeah.
that's kind of 12th house. That's just a perfect example of like how that shifts and changes, and what it looks like, because
Full
you can,
circle.
yeah, oh yeah, I'm like, God. I mean, I'm not saying I'm where I was when I was little. I'm working on getting there, but I'm definitely not where I was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think human feces really like draws the line for a lot of people.
It was, and it wasn't like he was just so out of it that he like didn't know. He was like on time every day, got money, he just did his thing right there. And he
Wow.
hated our because our building engineer always kicked him out, and he hated him. So yeah, what's he gonna do? He's like, "I'll just shit down your stairwell." And then
Wow.
you can't do anything. You can't arrest them. You can't,
No.
because there's just, and they're like, it's
Nowhere.
illness. I'm like, for mental illness, he shows up every time on day. I mean, he doesn't even have a job that he has to show up for on time every day, but he shows up here on time every day. Like, come on, that's not mental
Oh my
illness.
God.
He knows what he's doing. But
Yeah.
now I look back and I'm like, not every homeless man is David in Salt Lake City.
David in Salt Lake City, if you're listening.
If you're listening, I want you to know I've forgiven you. I never had to clean it up though. So
Oh, that's nice. That's good.
probably does not forgive him. Not really.
All right. Aspects.
Okay. So when Uranus and the Sun are trining and working together, it makes a strong person intuitively, leadership-wise. They really do have a really broad way of thinking. Like in notes here, it says genius in thinking, but I mean, yeah, I mean, they're versatile. They're not judgmental. They're free. It just kind of vibes. And Libra, Sagittarius, Sextile, like it kind of really flows for me because Libra's pretty positive. Sagittarius is the most positive. This is what causes, my chart to be so strong, and why I'm Sagittarius dominant is because of this. So it overrules my little Libra sun that doesn't really do anything anyways. But together, they make a really peaceful. My life has been crazy, but it's also like positive, and I mean, I would say pretty peaceful for the most part, internally and externally. But when you have, different aspects, whether it be probably like a square is something that you're going to not vibe as well. You're going to be more nervous. You're rash decision making. There's not calmness there. It doesn't flow. And then possible strain in marriage is interesting. I like that. I just never really thought about it being connected, but I could see that because the way you think and how things change for you, if you don't have a good placement for that, then marriage, career, anything that you really spend a lot of time with can be straining. So, and then if they conjunct, kind of like the same as trine, it's positive, but it makes it the person very true to who they are. Anytime you have a conjunction, I always say like the sun and the rising are my favorite times I see something conjunct, because it's like the person comes off and how they see the world is truly who they are. And I think that that's kind of the same here when you have Uranus and Sun. It's just like what they've been through really aligns with who they are, and it creates an originality, independent. They're confident in who they are. And there could be negative. If you take it too far, you can have like superiority complex. So try to humble yourself some. Take a piece of that humble pie.
Stay humble.
Okay, the moon, yes. So the moon and Uranus, anytime they trine, this is an indication of really strong intuition. They have capabilities of feeling and seeing things in a way that most people can't. Especially if they have a moon, if their trine is like water and earth can be really good. Water and fire. Well, not water and fire, but like if you're fire, trines the moon, like if the Uranus is fire and it trines your moon, then it's very, those are what I'm saying, like anytime that those, mostly water, but sometimes fire and sometimes earth. Air, it can be the same. Like intuition is not going to be strong. Air is so much mental that it's hard for feeling. So not saying that it's not there, but I just don't think it would be as strong as a water, surprisingly fire, and sometimes earth. So when they are not, they're squares and they are not as flowy. Temperamental, definitely not. How you handle your moon is emotions, and Uranus is constant, is an abrupt change or rebellion and things like that. So when you think of like how you handle things emotionally, if things are changing and shifting and your moon is not aligning with that, then internally you're kind of like scattered and nervous, and it just makes you uncomfortable. So, which if you can learn to grow with that change, great. But if you don't, then you got to work through that, or you're just going to have this like nervousness and this stressful kind of expectation of things. So you got to work through that. And then if they conjunct, you can be very eccentric. Again, it kind of aligns with who you are emotionally and how things play a part. You really do kind of to your core become like independent, kind of the same with the sun, but emotionally you're pretty strong as far as like handling change and handling, because it aligns with whatever your moon is. It's the same, but it's the same.
Sorry, I just sneezed. I was like, I can't sneeze and change the slide at the same time for some reason.
Sometimes I'm talking so much and I'm like, I just need a drink or take a breath. I'm like, why? We only have an hour, but I'm like, sometimes I'm like,
it's too much at once.
It's a lot. So Uranus and Mercury, when these trine, think of Mercury, how you think, and think of like the things that happen in life. Like, if they really jive and they, trine each other, then that can give you this way of thinking that's very clever or original, independent, self-reliant nature, because you trust yourself and the way that you think, and the things that have happened have really created this structure and like confidence. Whereas if it squares, you know, it can cause confusion. So if things happen to you and the way that you think and the way that you speak, and it makes you not as flowy, not as like the way you communicate may be very like troubled, or you may be very opinionated, lack tact, things like that can happen because you don't really know how to say it. It just kind of like, "Ugh," and it's change. And so if it doesn't flow and you don't like change, you seem angry about it almost. So
Hmm.
that's just kind of that energy. And if it conjuncts, um, Mercury thinking, the things that come through life that train you, teach you abruptly, can make you have talents. And this is for scientific thinking, and that's, I mean, very true. But it also can be just very broad way of thinking, very like, Mercury can pull like Gemini energy. It could also be Virgo. So I think of like mathematical. I'm sure that's where scientific kind of comes in because of that Mercury Virgo energy, and like how it's like laid out, right? It's very structured. And that if your Uranus and your Mercury really are the same, then it aligns kind of in a beautiful way, and it can make you very smart at the things that a lot of us struggle with: math, science, not so much
Mhm.
like arts and things like that. This is more left brain items.
That makes sense. I think I have a sextile
Ooh,
with Mercury.
it's positive. It's a good interaction.
Yeah,
Not as strong as a trine, but it's there. Positive.
it's there.
It's a positive.
I'll take anything that's good aspects with Mercury.
Yeah. I think you're a great community. What is your Mercury in?
My Mercury is in
Oh,
Aquarius.
nice. Yeah. So I think you communicate
Thanks.
very well. Venus. So these are fun because Venus is all about love, and if you have an aspect that really works well together, if they trine each other, it can make you artistic, romantic. I also would like to throw in, I don't see it on here, but um, independent, to where this person doesn't necessarily need a relationship to, you meet people that are constantly in relationships, and then you meet people who are constantly not in relationships. This person is fine being alone because I think that they've gone through with the events, like the change and the shift. If they really align and they work well together, it makes you okay to not have to have someone, which is, great, I think. They can be sentimental. Um, it just works well. And anytime you have good aspects, training aspects, sextiles, they work well together, and it just makes everything easier. And then when you have them where they square, it can be very confusing, especially in a Uranus and Venus aspect, because it makes things very confusing. And it's like, things change, they shift, it's hard. It's like, okay, are relationships even worth it? Um, Imbalance, Libra, Venus energy, Libra, Taurus, even, they like to be balanced, they like pleasure. And when these things don't align and they don't cooperate well together, it really does create like confusion and like anger towards it. And so unhappiness. When I see someone that has this in their chart, I do look at a lot of their relationships and see like, these are just, unfortunately, this is like how relationships are going to go for you for a while, until you evolve, until you grow. And maybe it's the universe pushing this person to stay single and to
Mm.
really have self love. And that sucks if that's what you want, a partnership. But for some people, it's the reality in this life.
Mm.
I think people are too heavy on the worrying about being with someone. They're like, I don't want to be alone when I die. Like, girl, if you're
Oh
going to
my
be
God.
alone when you
Being
die,
alone is great.
unless you Romeo and Juliet that shit, you are going alone. Like, and people are going alone. It is what it is. But people are so fixated on that. I don't want to die. I don't want to be old and alone. Like,
Who
you
cares?
might
It's
like
so much
being alone
fun.
when you're old. Yeah, you might like peace and quiet.
And clean houses.
Yes. So I don't know. I think we're evolving. I think we're shifting. But
Mhm.
I do think that there is that there. And I think that's kind of sometimes the lesson in this when I see a Uranus Venus is like they want relationships. They want a good relationship so bad. And it never aligns for them. Like
Mm.
maybe they have the perfect relationship and then that person dies or something.
Oof.
Or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's like they
Yeah.
finally get it and then it's like something happens, even if it's like something they can control. But
Yeah.
and then if they conjunct, this gives again kind of the same uh as the rest of the conjunctions. It just through and through the things that happen align with who the person is, what their Venus, what they need, and it causes them to really understand relationships and be really good in them and be good with them or without them, whatever that looks like for them. So I always appreciate a Uranus Venus conjunction. Mars, because Mars is like reactive, how we react to things. So when you think of like something shifting really fast and the way you react to it is huge. Like life is nothing. We only are what we react to, right? Like we how we react to it, you know. So it's like if something crazy happens, and then we're like, okay, you have, and if they trine, it is a very okay. Here's how I handle it. It's very practical. It's like okay, let's think about this. Like we got to handle it. Here's the problem. Here's the solution. They work well together, and it's okay, and that's great and good for you. I think. Let me think here. No, mine are not. I was like, I think mine are tried, but they're not. They're not squared either, though. So think of it like that. Think of it as working like something happens and how you react to it is very practical. And that is huge to have. So if you have this placement, good for you. If it is a square, it can create the opposite. If it doesn't align, like you can't figure it out, like you can't like fathom the fact that okay, there's a problem and a solution that's for anything, but you're like, oh my gosh, there's no solution to this, and you just panicked and you freak out and you're impatient and you're combative and it creates a lot of irritability and tension in this person, and I think they carry this energy around with them because Mars being one of the personal planets, it's kind of like I think it like really takes like a strong toll on this person and they carry their Mars energy with them a lot. So be careful if you have your Uranus square Mars that you're not living in this like sudden like change causing this whole frenzy. Like learn how to find the problem and find the solution. That's it. Once you figure that out, you're golden. But you have to figure it out. So, and if they can jump, then this gives the person high energy. It can be very excitable. They can be very like life, like things come their way that are changing, but they just like roll with it and they're fine with it. So that's always good.
What if it has a Q? Quasi sex? Is it quasi sextile or something?
I mean, it's just not as it's not as abrasive. Like it's
Mm.
not as it's abrasive. It doesn't like it's a good thing. Sextiles are good. Those are good. It's not as like highlighted in your chart. It's like very subtle. That's kind of
Okay,
what it means. So,
got it.
and then Uranus and Jupiter. So Jupiter is of luck and expansion, and you know just all of those things. So this person, the things that happen to them. Generally are good. They just tend to be lucky. Leadership ability because they have that confidence. They're strong. They're structured. Magnetic personality. I have a friend that has this. I've done her chart, and she's one of those people that you just like sit and listen to, and you could listen to for hours, and she's just like like exciting and empowering and fun, and she has Uranus Jupiter trying. And like it makes total sense. And she, you know, she has started her own company. She definitely is for the community. It's like kombucha and things like that that she's like trying to like pass on like health to people and like healthier alternatives. And so she has all these things, but she has a very magnetic personality. And it's truly, I mean, she's also a Libra, but you know, I don't think that's what's really star of her show. I think her Uranus Jupiter trine is really what like you know makes her who she is, and it's Sagittarius and Aries. So she's got a good thing going there with hers. And then if they square, they can be outspoken. I don't know that that's necessarily bad. I wouldn't say outspoken. I would just say like maybe like very opinionated and very like they're right and very like matter of fact, no fun, no play, just kind of like things have not come to them as easily. Things have not been as easy for them to gain. Like it seems like they can't catch a break kind of energy. And then when they conjunct, when they're the same, it's freedom loving, restless, because this is very like, luck with, quick change. Like it just makes them very like flighty and free, um, extremely tall or short. I don't know. I gotta look more into like the things, but that's interesting. I like that. An unusual.
I'm extremely short, and I have the conjunction.
I like it.
I mean, I would consider 5'2.5" short, so under average.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Venus and Saturn. When you think of Saturn and you think of all the lessons that you go through with the abrupt change, it's kind of like if it works together and it trines, it is going to make you like a fierce little human, right? It's going to make you very versatile, very resilient, and this is kind of where willpower and initiative comes in. So administrative talents, because they don't miss really attention to detail kind of things. It's just a very resourceful. It's all the things Saturn is, and it's magnified, and it works, and it's easy. Now, if it's not easy, it can be a very anxious person, very depressed person, because Saturn is trying to teach things. Uranus is always changing. You're always like on the lookout of like, oh my gosh, like what is going to change? What's going to happen when it changes? You don't have that flow, and you don't have that like positive energy. It really can cause, health issues. This is kind of like if you don't have this under control and you don't learn how to evolve through this, you're going to create certain things within yourself that can ultimately lead to diseases in your body because of what you're carrying around with you. So this one is very important to try to understand and try to evolve and calm down about, because changes are going to happen. The lessons that you learn about it, and if they don't work well together, you have to find a way to make them work together, or you could be putting yourself at risk. Uranus and Saturn conjunction. This one is, great self-reliance and determination. It is someone who is original. Their personality is original. They're probably, if it does conjunct, they're probably not someone that's too crazy, that's too wild or too out there, because it's probably like whatever it is, it's so aligned that they're just kind of stuck in that. And I'll use like two very free signs. Like if you have a Gemini, Saturn, which probably no one does, but Gemini, Saturn, this is why I always say Saturn is so hard for me, because it's like we don't have that. We don't have that generation yet. But like a Gemini, Saturn, and Gemini, Uranus, like you think of that as being fun and free and whatever, but they probably really stick to what that sign is true to. Like Geminis, they can be fun and free, but it's probably more of the like less childlike and more of like, okay, this is, trying to think of like Gemini responsible qualities. The more responsible qualities of a Gemini is what it would be. Now, what those are, they're really smart.
Chatty.
They're probably not a little more strict chatty than like fun, playful chatty, but they're probably still chatty. Maybe like when you meet those Geminis that are just so full of knowledge and they start talking and you're like, what language are you speaking? Maybe that's kind of this. Maybe that's the best way to explain this. Like, because sometimes I've met Geminis that are so smart and they don't have that playful thing. They just have this like very serious. But you can tell they're still mentally stimulated. They're still mentally going, but it's not in a fun, like playful way. It's more serious way, and way too smart for me. My little Libras over here. Don't understand. But yeah, that would be Uranus Saturn aspect conjunction. Uranus and Neptune. Over. Kindness, sensitivity, intuition. This one, I was going to say artistic ability, but music ability, spiritual and mystical interest. So this person, when you have them trining, it's just free and spiritual and fun and light and artistic. Now, if they don't, they square each other. High emotional level, easily upset. I mean, think of, the energy that each one of these bring in. It can be very unpredictable and very the mind and the way you think, and the dreamland can be very, disrupted by quick and abrupt change. So that's kind of that square aspect. And then conjunctions, bias towards 650. I think it would be very eccentric. I think this person would be like tip of the top eccentric. Maybe change, maybe depending on what it is. I guess if it's like Capricorn, if they're conjunct Capricorn Uranus with Capricorn Neptune, it might be a little less like eccentric. But I definitely think that if it's like more airy or even fire, it would be very eccentric, very different. They have a, let's see, this conjunction occurs every 171 years and is considered generational influence. Very interesting. I didn't know it
Yeah,
was
I'm
171.
excited for next week.
Yes. So, yeah, it's a great thing if you have a conjunction. It doesn't happen very often. So, if you have this, good for you.
Let us know.
Let us know. Tell us how your mind works. Oh, Uranus and Pluto. If they work well together, strong loyalty, ability to direct energy into productive channels. That is probably one of the best aspects is when you have anything that is good with Pluto, I think is good. Like I know Julie and I are always bitching about our Saturn being in Scorpio, but I mean, at the end of the day, it also conjuncts our Pluto, and we'll go into that. But I'm always grateful for that because there is like, that whole aspect. And so, if you have a positive trine with Uranus and Pluto, it brings like a positivity to your life. Now, if you have a square, it can indicate inner tension. You can be a very tense person. You can be very like on edge. Emotional outbursts, definitely, because Pluto is going to push you through the shit, and Uranus is always changing. And so, but Pluto just does it longer. Like Uranus is like, oh, quick shift, here we go, we're on to something else. And Pluto's like, let me drag you through the mud for 17 years first. It just really wants to pull you through the shit. So if you have a square here, I'm sorry. That's like conjunction, strong sense of independence. So anytime you have this conjunction, it occurs every 115 years. And again, generational influence, but it can be positive or negative depending on how it's channeled. That means depending on how other aspects in your chart work together, it can be good or it could be bad. Again, your Uranus would have to be in Scorpio. If your Uranus is in Scorpio and your Pluto's in Scorpio, which most likely it is, I guess it could be Sagittarius, possibly Libra. But let us know. We'll kind of do a study on that because I'm still heavily studying Pluto. Pluto to me is so fascinating because it's so far out there and there's so many signs we haven't seen in it in our generation. It's hard to study. Mm-hmm. And so other than the influences of what it brings, I just don't think there's enough hard evidence of like comparison of like real life things because we've only seen so much with generations. So
yes. And we did it.
So if anyone has questions or you want to give a shout out to where you're at, we love to know where you are. We love seeing different people from all over or seeing people close by, just who's watching and questions about your Uranus.
Uranus and Virgo, third house.
Third house. Nice. Well, so this one is going to be, like I was saying, Virgo, we went over this last week, communication, like it's going to be changing, shifting for you, always how, and in the third house of like communication and how you communicate and how, and whether you've evolved or not, when things change or when things shift in your world, how you mentally think about it and how you can process it is going to be very important. And I feel like you have a really good knack for adapting to change because this person also is a Gemini sun. So lots of third house Virgo, Mercury energy in your chart. So communication and change, I think, is pretty easy for you. I would say. I don't know you that well, but I do think that you're adaptable. And I think that's key to life. If you're too stuck in your ways, everything's always. So I don't know how people do it.
I don't see any other. Well, we have this question, but I let her know astro.com. But Kayla, if you want to tell us where your Uranus is at. That sounds like just such a weird sentence.
You can. So I personally, I use the app. I want to make sure I'm looking at Time Passages.
Oh, that's a good one.
My
Detailed.
personal favorite, and it tells you your entire chart. It tells you everything that you need to know, what house it's in and what that means, and it's the best learning tool for beginners. So Time Passages, I can send you a link to it. It's an app, and I think it's the best in my opinion. I use it a lot. But Sydney, her Uranus and Neptune are in Capricorn. Well, that's fun. That's they are conjunct. So this is kind of that. Was this the 151 years? Is this the one?
I think so. Let's see.
So how you think? I think it is.
171 years.
171. So wow, you are a rare breed, my dear. So I mean, how you handle things and how I would say you handle things really well. I think that I know there's a lot of emotional things there. This is an Aries with a Scorpio moon person, and so if they're both in Capricorn, I mean that's cardinal energy with emotions. You're not a shit show. I would definitely say that the things that happen to you and how you've handled it and how your mental is, I think, is a positive thing because she's been through a lot. She's been through things that I can't even fathom. So I'm just like, that's a lot. You've gone through a lot. And when those conjunct, I feel like the change and the abrupt change, like there's been a lot of things that have changed suddenly for her. I think that, the mental and her, mental capacity is, I would say, pretty good for considering the things that she's been through. Just my opinion, but Uranus in the fifth house. So you change through children and you evolve, like the things that come to you, like this creative um, sector of your chart. So anytime you have Uranus in the fifth house, it can really show you change and how to grow through like creativity and creating things. This person literally just reached out to me on like, well, not reached out to me, but reached out on a poll about like what should I do? What are things I can do? Creative things and like my own time when I'm home with the baby. And I was just like, you should make dreadlocks, synthetic dreadlocks, things like that are really gonna shift and create, this understanding and especially having a kid. So having a kid, fifth house is of children, and that's really what's going to change and shift for the positive. And it also might be even hard, but once you evolve and grow through it or evolve through it, you're smooth sailing.
Spot on. That's it. That's all we have.
Sorry I kept you guys. But I tried to talk as fast as I could.
We did it. And next week we have Neptune, which is really interesting if you guys are into history, because it's also one of the generational signs, and it's very cool to see like the years and like the book is old that I pulled from too, and so it's just kind of interesting to see the foresight that they saw. It was cute.
I love it.
I'm
Also,
excited.
everyone, I did Google when the iPhone came out and what no, not Neptune, what Uranus was in. Pisces, not Virgo, not Gemini. I was shocked, but Pisces,
Yep.
it
Makes sense.
Makes sense. It's different. It's out there, but changing, shifting, that mutable energy for sure. But yeah, I googled it because I was curious. I had to know.
Yeah, I'm very excited to cover next week too. It's just interesting to see like the changes over the years.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
Very exciting. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Elle. Thank you, Megan. And we will see you guys next Tuesday.